Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Magandang gabi po sa inyo na lahat. My name is DJ Ken, and this is my first vlog. Ang pag-uusapan po natin ngayon ay tungkol sa paglaban ni Governor Gwendolyn Garcia sa protocol ng IATF. Alam ko po iba sa inyo hindi pa napapanood ito, kung paano ipinaglaban ng butihing Governor Gwendolyn Garcia ang Cebu. I am very much impressed how she handles herself and how she handles and defended Cebu. Naalala ko po ang ating pinakamagaling na senador nung siya'y nabubuhay pa. Walang iba kundi ang ating Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago. Kung nabubuhay lang po sana ang ating mahal na senadora, hindi po ganito ang mangyayari sa Pilipinas. Salamat at binuhay ng butihing Governor Gwendolyn Garcia ang pagkatao ni Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago. Dahil paano niya ipinaglaban ng Cebu laban sa protocol nitong mga IATF. Let's watch this.
So let me tell you, after I had studied and restudied, after I had listened as much as I could, I came upon the conclusion that economic lockdowns were not the answer. As I went around the province, let me tell you, while others chose to hide, I chose to risk myself and go around all of our towns and cities to see for myself what was really happening on the ground. And I saw the suffering. Businesses closed, jobs were lost, livelihoods were lost, people were hungry. And I told our mayors, do we have enough funds? Are we now going to spend all of our resources to buy rice and canned goods to keep people begging us for food because they no longer could not purchase a kilo of rice? We don't have enough resources. I made that bold decision a year ago, when we reopened tourism. We went around. We started, when the province of Cebu was finally granted MGCQ status, where tourism would be allowed. And so we started going around. Since July of last year. For Cebu City, probably, MGCQ status has been on 10 months because they went back to MECQ. But the province of Cebu was never put on MECQ. Even when cases were rising in the city of Cebu, we were able to manage COVID-19. And so for the province of Cebu, we've been on MGCQ status for almost a year now. That, in spite of having opened the economy again, going to our towns, to our cities in the province, will show you an economy that is slowly starting to recover. I speak as one who is tasked to look after the welfare of millions of Cebuanos. If it were left to me alone and my family, I'd probably have decided otherwise. And I would have luxuriated in the comfort of my home, lest I be infected with the dreaded COVID-19. But you see, we are more than ordinary people. We are tasked with a duty to serve those that trusted in us. We are the elected officials of this province. And that is probably why all congressmen in the province of Cebu, practically all towns and cities in the province of Cebu, passed resolutions urging the IATF to accept the Cebu Protocol. Because we interact with the people. We listen to their plea. We know how much they are suffering.
So nakikita ko pong ginagawa ng IATF sa Cebu dahil sa binubuhay na ni Governor Gwen Garcia, ang ekonomiya, itong IATF at DOH nagagalit at gumagawa ng paraan para ang Cebu sumunod sa kanilang protocol. Protocol na nagpapahirap lalo na sa mga kababayan natin, hindi lang sa Cebu kundi sa buong Pilipinas. Especially ang mga OFW at RFOs.
With such impressive resumes, I know that you take it upon yourselves with a deep sense of responsibility that the safety of Filipinos must be guaranteed and should be paramount. There was an attempt to ask the HRAC whether they are in fact following all protocols, and the expected answer came. However, reality is, from the meetings that I had conducted with the HRAC, and as admitted, they cannot always monitor these OFWs and ROFs because they lack hotel staff. I asked, do you change linens or towels within the 10-day isolation period? The answer was, well, for budget hotels, no. For the better hotels, they take out the linen and the towels, put it outside the door. They leave the clean linen outside the door too, and it's the OFW or ROF that changes the linen. Theoretically. PNP personnel that are assigned in hotels are doing exactly that. They're outside the hotels. I have had numerous statements from those that actually had to undergo this hotel isolation time, where OFWs would congregate in the rooms of other OFWs. I asked the same question. Those that were present in the meeting will confirm this. How do your staff control congregation of OFWs and ROFs? And the answer was, we can only speak through the loudspeaker because we cannot approach them. We can only monitor them on CCTV cameras. Policy is great, but that must be translated into actual reality. So my question is, if there were indeed, with all due respect to Secretary Galvez, all of these numerous regulations that we should be imposing upon hotels that are not, I'm sorry to say, that are not actually, religiously, rigidly followed, can we not impose the same regulations in our barangays, with our BHERTs, where we have PNP personnel distributed throughout all of our towns and cities? What makes a hotel room far safer and more hygienic than the strict protocols that I had defined? Executive Order number 5, February 3, 2020, as regards home quarantine. I was the first to define what home quarantine should be all about. the figures will show us, as has been presented. My executive order number 17, please flash that on the screen. The IATF came up with Resolution 95, which mandated the swab upon arrival and swab on the 5th day. Resolution number 96, which mandated taking out the swab upon arrival and swabbing on the 5th day. Resolution number 98, which now pegged it on the 6th day. And on those months, our cases steadily rose. When my executive order number 17, the graph please. When executive order number 17 was implemented on March 31st, that was when our cases started to decrease. Why? It's logic. It's simple. It doesn't even need some model or scientific analysis. When OFWs reach the hotel, they interact with hotel staff. They interact with chambermaids and all others who go home to their families. And these have not yet been tested. When these hotel staff go home to their families, they could possibly already have been infected. And so, the great infection game continues. From January until March 21 to 30, we peaked at 1,290. Take note, it was during this time when we took away the swab upon arrival protocol. From then on, it has been a steady decline when, by March 31st, we re-implemented the swab upon arrival. And so with all due respect again, to the claim of Secretary Galvez, that OFWs and ROFs are now making this a jump-off point and that they would rather prefer to come to Cebu because it's just a swab upon arrival and then when found negative, they are released on the 3rd day. May I just, as a suggestion, to ease this impasse, for after all, the provincial board ordinance applies to Cebuanos. That Cebuanos that arrive are tested and are found negative on the 3rd day shall be released to home quarantine that qualify or to designated isolation centers. May I just also respectfully inform the good secretary that we have over 2,400 beds for isolation occupants. Practically all of our towns have well-constructed, clean, hygienic isolation centers that can be designated as quarantine facilities. This is, after all, the #1 province in the entire country. Our towns can afford it. Our cities can afford it. The province can afford it. But this shall apply for Cebuanos. And to allay your fears that people from other provinces will now choose to come to Cebu, then we can continue with a 10-day quarantine in a designated hotel for non-Cebuanos. For after all, why must we keep Cebuanos in hotels? Sure, the OWA pays, for OFWs, but that's charged against the Bayanihan funds. That's not charged against OWA funds. That's still taxpayers' money. On the other hand, the ROFs will have to pay. I had thanked the President that he would try to look for funds to ease the 10-day stay in the hotel, which can cost anywhere from 25,000 to 30,000 to 50,000, depending upon the hotel. Because the ROFs have to pay standard rates. They are already in Cebu. Our mayors are well equipped to handle them, including our barangay captains. As you have repeatedly said, you admire the best practices of Cebu. Then please allow us to do this for the Cebuanos. Let this be a compromise. The Provincial Ordinance number 4-2021, which has adopted Executive Order number 17, will apply only to Cebuanos. For the rest of those that take the Cebu route and are non-Cebuanos that need to go home to their respective provinces, we will gladly accommodate them here in our hotels, where room capacity has now expanded from 2,500 initially to possibly 3,800, or the expected final number might be 5,000. That allows us to accommodate 5,000 OFWs and ROFs for 10 days. With arrivals now still limited at 300, we would only need 3,000 rooms. We hope, though, that arrivals will be further increased. That is our request. With all due respect, please, I speak not as a doctor, I certainly am not. Not as a scientist, I certainly am not. But I speak with a deep sense of duty as an elected official, as our vice governor and board members, congressmen and mayors as well are elected officials accountable to the people who elected us. We must, in accordance with Section 17, otherwise known as the General Welfare Act, Welfare Clause, must uphold the general welfare of our people and our constituents. Allow us to take this responsibility into our hands. For we cannot govern with what-ifs. We cannot possibly hope to achieve the welfare of our constituents when it's based on models and possibilities and assumptions. What is real is, in spite of the UK variant, in spite of the P.3 variant, otherwise erroneously identified as the Central Visayas variant, in spite of all of these other variants, Cebu province continues to be on MGCQ status. We are nearing a year now, and we should even now be granted low risk. So give us this responsibility. We have taken it upon our hands. So have our congressmen. So have our vice governor and the provincial board and our mayors. We have been able to handle the very first few months where we knew nothing of this virus. We continue to handle it. We continue to manage it now that we know so much more. Honorable Secretaries and our esteemed technical advisors, I am now on my 4th term as governor of Cebu. In 2004, the Cebuanos did what had never been done before in its 400-year history, and that was to elect its first woman governor ever in this, the oldest province in the entire country. And on that first day, July 1st of 2004, the first thing that I did was to climb to the top of the Capitol. Why? Because I wanted to see on eye level words that were etched on the facade of the dome. These were words that I always looked up to. This time, I wanted to read on eye level so that my heart could fully assimilate the meaning of these words. And these words are, the authority of government emanates from the people. The authority that we possess comes from the people. Whether you be legislators or chief executives, whether you be congressmen, board members, mayors, or even governor, whatever authority that we exercise came from the people who elected us and trusted us to look after their welfare. And that is our sacred responsibility contained in our oath to serve well and to serve faithfully. And so, from the bottom of my heart, I speak and beseech the IATF. I speak to our humanity. Allow us to be responsible for the people who gave us this authority. Allow us to be able to face them and say, we are accountable to you. We will serve you with our utmost best. Mabuhay ang Cebu. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Really, there is nothing for me to say at this point because we are just here upon the gracious invitation of the governor and the provincial board. And that's why we made ourselves available today to consider the request, no? To have a separate protocol for Cebuanos. Yun lang. So this has to be deliberated upon by the IATF in full, with, of course, our 55 or so experts, no? By and large, it's, you heard it, the appeal of the governor. So two protocols. Well, my personal thoughts don't count. My personal feelings don't count. Sige, thank you very much. Thank you.
Kumbaga, this is this is a series of conversations happening between the IATF and the province of Cebu and the governor. So it's a lot of exchanges of ideas, no? We're all on the same page in terms of ang intent na to, di ba? Our intent really is to control the spread of the virus, especially the Delta variant, while safely opening the economy, getting people back to work, returning overseas Filipinos back home, di ba? Na it shouldn't be so much of a hassle for everyone, no? So we're all in this learning process. We all are aware of how difficult it is to make decisions, no? As policymakers, kami sa IATF, all policymakers, they have valid points, obviously. But at the end of the day, while they are valid, you also have to look at ease in implementation, how easy it is to implement. Kaya bang ma-implement? Kaya bang to police? Let's continue to converse, no? Let's look for a compromise, a win-win. We thank Governor Gwen, the good people of Cebu, the policymakers of Cebu, the Sanggunian, for heeding also the President. When the President says na ganito, we all follow, di ba? The next action is to continue the conversation, di ba? We only give recommendations to the President. Our authority emanates from the Chief Executive himself, which is the President. This is a way for the good people of Cebu, the policymakers of Cebu, to air out their suggestions, which we have to digest, come up with our own recommendations to the President. Diba? So, at the end of the day, isa lang yung talagang chief policy maker.
Thank you so much for watching. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. And I hope marami po tayong natutunan sa mga sinabi ng ating butihing Governor Gwendolyn Garcia ng Cebu. Please leave a comment down below and I will be doing more viral issues like this dito sa ating bansa. Again, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you again next time.